Welcome to the Jamodi podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. Trust and commitment. I love those. As a college player in the 90s, whatever Coach Bliss said, I was all in. You want me to run through that brick wall? I'm going to do my very, very best. As you progressed from starting in high school at Holy Trinity in the 70s, moving up, and then at Davidson for all those years, did you see a difference in the immediate trust and commitment you have from players as the time went on? And I'm not trying to get into portal and all those things that are happening now, but the argument really of, do kids change or are they the same as they've always been? How did you see those words?
Well, culture has changed dramatically. My dad and so many of his contemporaries never spoke to me about things that happened in his life. He fought in World War II, and I never knew exactly what went on in World War II. And I believe that was the culture of people who were born during the war, people who were born during the Depression. They did not articulate or communicate what their feelings were. It was almost considered to be weakness. Yeah. If you shared some intimacies that revealed what was on your heart. And as we moved through the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, it became much more of a process that evolved than ever before. And now today, I think that's even more paramount. Men telling men that they love them, women telling women that they love them in a way of care is not anything that is out of the ordinary today. There's a much more openness and a willingness to share that, to say that. And as a coach, I really believe that has followed that same pathway. Coaches in the 50s and the 60s, they would never tell their players they loved them. They would never say something that would be deemed soft. And you could see the technical side of it too, when a coach would not allow a player to get a drink of water because it would be considered weakness to drink water. You got to be tough. And I'm mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. I was guilty of that in my early years. You guys, we have no water breaks. We're tough. We don't need water. And I had to learn that process. And it was a very, very challenging roadway that I had to go down in order to learn that process. So the communication and the articulation factor of commitment and trust and even care is something that is part of a cultural evolution that maybe one of the good signs of our cultural revolution.
Yeah, well said. And I think as coaches, as we spend so much time on X's and O's and style of play, and we want to continue to evolve with changes in the game and changes in the rules, I think we also have to be conscious of changes in culture and best practices in teaching and communicating with our players.
No doubt about that at all.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about the, I guess, standards and pillars of your program over those years, which were trust, commitment, and care. As you started to evolve at Davidson and players were coming in of different calibers or different skill sets, how did you build confidence in them? And if not really building it because they're already college players, they should have a sense of confidence already. How did you help them maybe protect or build that confidence throughout a season?
You need to understand that trust, care, and commitment is something that we use TCC as the signal for it. And it became a torch, and it was lit in 92, and to this day it still burns.
Hmm.
And to me, that's the building of a culture. So you speak to anybody from 96, 97 that played at Davidson, and you speak to somebody in 2017, 2018, they're connected by TCC. Yeah, they're connected by Davidson, but TCC connects them, and they could all tell stories about TCC. So that first of all is pivotal to what your question was about. So building their confidence when it's a torch that's burning, someone has to pass that torch. Someone has to carry that torch. So I had to live that myself. I had to live those three words myself, coach myself first. And that is maybe one of the greatest challenges of our culture today is that there are so many platforms to express your opinions. There are so many opportunities to coach someone else, and coach is a big word right there.
Yeah.
Give your opinion.
Yeah.
The opinions that are expressed in our world today are extraordinary. And everyone wants to coach everyone else, but they don't coach themselves.
Hmm.
And we have a lot of sayings in our program, and one of them was sweep in front of your own locker, and the locker room will be a clean place. And I used an example of that. Actually, I actually played that out with our players. One day, it was the year that Stephen had left us. So everyone now is trying to fill the role of Stephen Curry, which could not be filled.
Hard to do. Yeah.
So, but the guys thought they were the next Steph, or I'm going to get plays called for me, and I'm going to get shots like Steph got. And we were mired in mediocrity. We were struggling desperately.
Hmm.
And it came to the beginning of the conference season in January, and they're out there warming up before practice. And I was just so disenchanted with their ability to play the role that was assigned to them and do what they were supposed to do instead of stepping into this realm of Steph Curry. So they're out there warming up, and I go into the locker room and I emptied their locker stalls and I threw all their stuff on the floor in front of their lockers. Then I walked back into the gym and I said, we're going to have a team meeting right now. And let's go back into the locker room. And of course, they walked into the locker room and they see it disheveled as can be, wondering, did someone come in here and try to steal our stuff? I said, sit in your stalls. So they sat down in their stalls. Now everyone clean their stuff up that's in front of their stall. And they cleaned up in front of their stall. And guess what? The locker room became a clean place. And I said to them, what you just demonstrated was that when you do your job, what you control, then we could be the team we want to be. We could clean that sloppiness up if we do our own job. But we always want to do someone else's job. We always want to give our opinion. And the media has certainly highlighted this with the amount of platforms that the media has. And I think that's one of the shortcomings of our culture today is that there are so many opinions out there. We all have rights to express our opinion, but discipline comes before those rights. Discipline comes before that freedom.
Mm. And comparison is the thief of all joy. And with all of these outlets that are there, it's so much easier to compare now and
Who
to
said
fall into that
Roosevelt,
trap.
did Roosevelt say that comparison is the thief of all joy? Did Roosevelt say that?
We'll give him credit. I'm not sure. I've heard
I'm
it
not sure
so
it was
much. Yeah.
Petty or Franklin.
Yeah. But it is hard to keep our players focused on what they can control and to be where their feet are. Now, any advice to where maybe you have because Curry's years when he was doing amazing things, he wasn't alone. He had other teammates that, not that they took a back seat, but they played a role very different to what he was playing. And like over the years at Faith, we're a small private school, but I have had some great players. So it's all relative, right? Like when I have a great player and other guys are starting to compare or maybe wanting to do more, or when those great players leave and they think that they're going to be the same, how do you keep them from falling into that trap?
It was interesting that it's not just you as a coach that does that. Stephen became a great player for a lot of the abilities he had. And one of the abilities that one of many abilities of his that people don't know about is the humility that he has.
Hmm.
And he had a tremendous balance between confidence and humility. And in his second game, he had a very poor performance in his first college game. In his second game, he dropped 32 on Michigan up in Ann Arbor. So he's his freshman getting 32 points, and the cameras and the microphones were in front of his face. And what does he say? The first words out of his mouth in the press conference is, well, I'd like to thank Thomas Sanda for setting tremendous screens and Jason Richards for delivering the ball on the money every time. And I made a lot of mistakes defensively, but Max Paulus Goslin was behind me, helped me out every time. So he clearly demonstrated to his teammates that he was dependent upon them. And in order to say something like that, you must have great confidence, but you also must have great humility. And there are people that try to demonstrate humility, and in the process of demonstrating that humility, what they do is they shortchange themselves. And it's almost like they try to be so humble about things that they don't take what is theirs. They've got to seize what is theirs. They have the degree of talent, a degree of virtue that needs to be put on the stage. And by talking about humility and suffocating that, you suffocate the gifts that you're able to share. The pivotal aspect of that is that your confidence is to make the team better, not to make myself better. And Stephen demonstrated that in the conversation with the media post-game Michigan when he had the 32 points.
Do you think that's something that came from, obviously he had a great upbringing, great parents, great family, or was that something also that you as a staff or as a culture had set them up for success, almost prepped them for? Because I'm just trying to think of, am I just going to leave it up to my 17 and 18-year-olds to step into that correctly? Or is there ways that we can, behind the scenes, almost prepare them, like for a job interview?
Well, when you actually recruit somebody, you look for boxes to be checked. Steph checked every one of those boxes, as did the Kosmowski boys, Landry and Logan. They checked the boxes too. Why did they check the boxes? Were they smarter than any other 16, 17, 18-year-old? No, because they were brought up that way. They had probably the greatest gift of two terrific parents, Landry and Logan, plus Stephen. They had great parents who educated them, and it became instinctive and habitual for them to show that humility. And but it wasn't something that was electrified by their presence on the Davidson basketball program, but we recognized that, so we accentuated it as well, and we further fed that fire. Again, it goes back to that torch that's being lit. When that torch is lit, you got to keep it burning. So they came to us with a lit torch, and then what we did was just feed it more so that it burned brighter.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.